All right, so it's 7 o'clock on Monday, March 21st, 2022, and I'll call the meeting to order. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Okay, seeing none. So we have the minutes of the previous meeting, and those were from March 7th, 2022. We have a mover and seconder for those. Okay, Councillor Clark, Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor, and that's carried. And the first main thing on our agenda is a presentation. And we have Dan Parker, our fire chief, here with us, as well as our retired fire chief. And I'd like to call both Dan Parker and Aaron Nordoff forward. And I think we got you to go over here. There we go.
Chief, it's my distinct honor to present a plaque to you on behalf of Adelaide Metcalfe Township and staff, and council. Dedication of 40 years of your service. It's our distinct privilege that you've showed such determination, integrity, serving your community over the 40 years. And we have a presentation here of a fire ring built locally by Cordero Fabrication. Hopefully there's something that you and AH can enjoy at your campsite up at Portobello and enjoy there as well.
Thanks very much. Yes, you'll be lighting fires now instead of no, thank you very much. Yeah, the fire department's been a huge part of my life for 40 years, and I do miss it. Some parts I don't. But yeah, so anyway.
I should say I was at a county chiefs meeting today, and of course everybody's asking about him, how he's doing, how he's enjoying retirement. So he's very well thought of in the Chiefs community as well.
Yeah, I've made a lot of friends and contacts along the way for many years, and province-wide, really. Yeah.
Definitely.
Good. Thank you.
Congratulations.
If you want some help carrying that thing out there, I can, we might need a couple people.
All right. Again, Aaron, on behalf of council, thank you so much for all your dedication over the 40 years. I want to repeat everything I said back in December. So thank you again. All right. So we have the Committee of Adjustment next on our agenda. So we need a motion that council convene as a Committee of Adjustment for the purpose of hearing applications for consent B01 2022, B02, and B03 2022 at 7:04. Okay, Councilor McKinnon and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. And before I hand it over to our planner, Aaron, I have the statement that I like to read. The purpose of the following public hearing for the Committee of Adjustment, as well as the public meeting, are to give the Committee of Adjustment and Council, as well as the general public, an opportunity to hear all interested persons or parties with respect to the applications being heard this evening. The public is advised that comments expressed in written material presented are a matter of public record, available for full disclosure. If a person or public body files an appeal of decision made this evening to the Ontario Land Tribunal without having made a written request or written submission to the committee or council, that the tribunal may dismiss the appeal. And if you wish to be notified of the decision in writing, please submit a written request to the clerk's office. All right, so the first application is the B01 2022, which was deferred last month. And I believe we have the owners here. We have Derek is joining us. And I just asked Derek, if you're able to just, are you able to hear us and see us, or just hear us?
Yeah, I can see you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. All right. So I'm going to hand it over to Aaron Besh, our planner, to go through the report.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. I would like to share my screen if possible. It's currently locked for participants. There we go. Thank you, Mike. Can everyone see that? Perfect. So the first application or application before the Committee of Adjustment thing is for B01-2022. Is for 3279 Napperton Drive or County Road 39. Owners are Derek and Craig Buren. So the purpose of this application is to sever one additional residential lot from a larger vacant lot known municipally, again, as 3279 Napperton Drive. As you did mention, Mayor Smith, this application was originally considered at the February 22nd meeting, but was deferred so that we could revise the application to include easement consents for a shared driveway onto Napperton Drive. So I know this is the Committee of Adjustment, but I will be making reference to the application of zoning as well. So the applicants have also put in an application to rezone the property, both the severed and retained lands, from their current zoning, which is institutional, to a site-specific urban residential zone. So this site-specific zone will recognize the residential use of the land, as well as the deficient lot area and deficient width of the proposed lots. So the lots have the same dimensions. We're looking for a frontage of 2386 meters along Napperton Drive and a approximate lot area of 1,757 square meters in size. So the property is located on the south side of Napperton Drive between Eastman Avenue and Adelaide Metcalfe and Jean Street in Strathroy-Caradoc. Napperton Drive, again, is classified as a collector road under the jurisdiction of the Middlesex. The subject lands are currently vacant of buildings and structures and appear to have an existing access off of Napperton Drive. The applicants have advised that 2 drilled wells exist on the land to be used as part of the proposed development. Staff note that verification or establishment of access potable water supplies, as well as suitability for private sanitary services, should be addressed as conditions of this severance. So again, I do note that the lands are zoned institutional, which it is no longer of interest of the owners to retain that zoning. So we are looking for rezoning this evening to the site-specific urban residential zone. So the subject lands are located within the residential use designation, as well as within the special urban policy area 2. The property is also within the urban area boundary as identified in the Adelaide Metcalfe official plan. I will note that the urban residential zone permits single detached dwellings and requires a minimum lot area of 1,850 square meters and a lot width or frontage of 30 meters. The application was circulated to the prescribed agencies as well as surrounding property owners. The Adelaide Metcalfe chief building official advised that a lot grading plan will be required, qualified engineer outlining how these sites are to be graded. The Adelaide Metcalfe drainage superintendent advised that this lot is just outside of the cable drain and the Eastman Avenue drain watershed, so no drain apportionment will be required for this consent. The county engineer advised that the owners would be required to dedicate lands up to 15 meters from the center line of County Road 39, if not already to that width. However, I will note that it does appear that the lands have been subject to the road widening requirement in the past. And it does not appear that additional lands will be required, but for consistency's sake, we include that condition in the consent. So the owner will also be required to dedicate 0.3 meter reserves to the County of Middlesex, save and except for 3 meters on either side of the common property line, is to establish a shared driveway. And to facilitate this, we require reciprocal access easements to be registered on title for both of the properties to allow the single shared driveway for both residential lots. The CN rail, they have a line that is in proximity to the subject property this evening. So given the scale of the subject application being a single family residential development, CN will not be pursuing implementation of its typical criteria for sensitive uses in proximity to the railway corridor, However, they do recommend several conditions of approval. They recommend that the following clause be inserted in all development agreements, offers to purchase, and agreements of purchase and sale. Warning: the Canadian National Railway Company or its assigns or successors in interest have rights, right-of-ways within 300 meters from the land, the subject hereof. So basically, I don't want to go through all the legalese here, but basically what saying is that they would like to have all property owners in the future be advised that there is a railway that is in proximity to the property, and that CNR is not responsible for any complaints of noise arising from the usage of these rail lines. St. Clair Compton Authority advised no concerns. Strathroy Caradoc did advise that the provision of water and sanitary services along that have been provided through an agreement between the municipalities of Strathroy and Adelaide Metcalfe. This agreement expired years ago and has not been renewed. This is the typical comment that we receive from Strathroy for properties that are subject to the servicing agreement. However, these lands are tended to be serviced through private servicing and not subject to the servicing agreement at this time. Strathroy Caradoc also mentions or requires that in regards to fire service, the applicant should be made aware that there is a service agreement obliging the Strathroy Caradoc Fire Department to respond to structure fires in Adelaide Metcalfe. Specifically, Strathroy Caradoc does not respond to non-structure fires and only responds if they are not otherwise engaged in their own municipality. No comments have been received by the public at this time. So I've analyzed the consent against our provincial policy statement, county official plan, and local official plan. I'm satisfied that the proposal meets the requirements under these policy documents and can be considered infill development within a settlement area. So this is provided that the applicant can demonstrate there is adequate potable water and suitability of the land for private sanitary services without affecting surrounding wells. So staff recommends, as per usual in the use of severances, we recommend that these be added as conditions of approval. To facilitate the proposed severance, as we mentioned before, there is an application for zone change as well. So this will, our staff do deem this to be appropriate for the land, especially since we are requesting a deficient lot area and lot frontage for these two lots. So that can be addressed through the site-specific zoning amendment. Does not need to be dealt with through a minor variance. So that is quite handy in this situation. Although the subject lands do fall within the special urban policy area, I note that the residential use is not affected by this policy. All that the policy looks to do is to recognize the non-residential uses that exist in the area of Eastman Ave. This does not prohibit any residential development of this area. So I also note that there are properties of similar size and smaller within the neighbor vicinity. To support this proposal, the applicants have provided a sketch which demonstrates a potential build out of the two lots. So I will switch to that at this time so that you can see what was submitted. So the applicants have identified a building envelope based on the setback requirements in the UR zone. They have also identified a location for a septic tank and big bed. The two drilled wells have been identified in front of the dwellings. And we have also noted here where the shared driveway would be through the reciprocal access easements. So again, the county engineer advised that this shared driveway, it will be a requirement as part of the county comments. So in response to this requirement, the applicant has amended their application to include the establishment of these easements on both lots in favor of the other. When we initially discussed what these reciprocal easements would look like, the applicant has advised that They are fine the shared driveway access directly off of Napperton. However, their intention is to sort of separate the driveways once they enter onto private property, which is totally fine and is totally up to the discretion of the designer and the builders. In order to facilitate this, the applicant did request a 6-meter reciprocal easement onto the property. Planning staff do recommend that this be extended to 10 meters onto the property. Whether or not they use that 10 meters, of course, it's up to them, but this will allow them some flexibility in the future if there's any reorientation of the driveways that is required. In addition to these, the county engineer is requiring that a 1 foot or 0.3 meter reserve of land along Napperton Drive be provided to the County of Middlesex. So what that does is it removes legal access to the county road outside of what has been established as 3-meter easements. I have added that as a requirement of the conditions of approval. The applicant is also required to provide a survey plan demonstrating the lot lines and land dedication. So overall, I am satisfied that these the severance and easement establishment of this application are appropriate. I am recommending approval of the application this evening, as well as approval of the rezoning application. So the consent would be subject to the following conditions. Number 1, that the consent certificate be issued within 2 years of the date of the notice of decision. Number 2, that the applicant solicitor submits an undertaking to register electronic transfers of title exactly consistent with the acknowledgement and executed by the applicant and the decision of this committee. Number 3, that any outstanding property taxes be paid in full. Number 4, so I didn't touch on a report, or I did touch on my report, but I didn't touch on it before now. I'm also recommending as a condition of approval that a wooden privacy fence be installed along the eastern lot line of the lot to be retained. So I will go along this property line here. And the reason for that is there is a sort of light industrial commercial building directly beside the property on the Strathroy sort of within their boundary. So in order to sort of prevent any potential land use conflicts between the residential use and the light industrial commercial use, I am recommending that a fence be installed the length of the property line, starting at where the building kind of starts here along the line here. This is also, there's man doors along that wall as well. So just to provide privacy for the residential use and privacy for the industrial use, I believe that this is an appropriate measure at this time. So number 5, that the owner dedicate lands up to 15 meters from the center line of Napperton Drive to the County of Middlesex if required. Number 6, that the owner dedicate 0.3 meter reserves to the County of Middlesex, save and except for the 3 meters on either side of the common property line of the severed and retained lots. Number 7, that 3 meter wide by 10 meter wide long reciprocal access easements be registered on title to allow for a single shared driveway for both lots. Number 8, that a zoning bylaw amendment that recognizes the residential use of the lots and addresses any zoning deficiencies be in full force and effect. Number 9, that an adequate and potable water supply be demonstrated to exist for both lots. Number 10, that an engineered lot grading plan demonstrating adequate drainage outlets as well as available area for private on-site services on the lot to be severed and retained be completed to the section of the chief building official. Number 11, that the owner enter into a severance agreement with the township in order to advise future owners of the clause from the Canadian National Railway Company. Number 12, that a preliminary survey showing the lands being severed and retained, including the location of private water wells, be submitted. Number 13, that 2 paper copies and 1 digital copy of the reference plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the township. Again, I am recommending approval of the zoning application as well, and further that the final reading be provided once the deposited reference plan has been received to the satisfaction of the township. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Derek, do you have anything you'd like to add or any questions at all?
No, I think Aaron covered everything pretty well.
Okay, thank you, Derek. And Mike, we don't have any other registrants for this application?
We did have Jennifer Huff from Strathroy on this file, but she has not arrived as of yet in the list.
Okay. With that, is there any questions or comments from the Committee of Adjustment? Okay, seeing none. So we have the recommendation in front of us, and that is with the 13 conditions. Mover and seconder for those. Okay, Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Clark. All those in favor? And that's carried. All right, and Derek, we do have your public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment. If you'd like, you can stick around. We do have 2 more applications before that one in the Committee of Adjustment. But seeing that Council or the Committee of Adjustment just approved your application here, I would assume Council will be approving your zoning bylaw amendment. So it's up to you if you'd like to stay or if you'd like to head out.
Okay, I'll head out.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right, so the next application is consent application B02-2022, and that's for 4490 Walker's Drive. And I believe we have either Alan or Marcy Langford. Al, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I am. NCU.
Okay, excellent. Now, before I hand over to Aaron, I did realize that I didn't get this camera to move around to make sure everybody that's watching at home knows who's here. So I'm going to ask Councillor Clark if you just push your button there and it'll rotate around. Excellent. So we got Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Clark. No, you're good. You're good. And then we're going to have our fire chief, Dan Parker. You push that button and it's going to go around the other way. And then that way, everybody watching at home. Oh, I'll stop. Yeah, it keeps on going. Maybe. Oh no. There we go. So we have Deputy Mayor Hendricks, and then Johnny, our treasurer, Walter Cato, our public works manager, and Dan Parker, our fire chief. And okay, yep. I said all those things without the microphone being on. So hopefully you could see everybody and recognize everyone. I apologize. Okay. I'll hand over to Aaron Besh for the report.
Thank you, Mary Smith. And we could still hear you, even though your microphone wasn't on, so it was all good. So the next application before committee this evening is for application for consent B02-2022. Owners are Alan and Marcy Langford. So the purpose of this application is to permit the severance of a residence from a larger farm parcel that has been deemed surplus to the needs of the farming operation. The subject property is currently 41.88 hectares in size and is located on the north side of Walker's Drive between Tates Road and MacArthur Road. So the lands to be severed, the proposal is approximately 67.5 meters of frontage along Walker's, lot depth of 52 meters, and a lot area of 0.35 hectares or 0.86 acres in size. The lands proposed to be severed contain an existing single detached dwelling that was constructed in 1939, a detached garage, and 2 grain bins, which are to be removed. The dwelling is privately serviced with an individual septic system and well. The lands proposed to be severed include an existing access onto Walker's Drive, which is a local road under the jurisdiction of the township. The lands proposed to be retained in the remnant farm parcel contain agricultural land in crop production and several agricultural buildings that are to be removed. The applicant has requested to retain an existing Quonset hut along with existing access onto Walker's Drive. So have evaluated the application based on our policies surrounding surplus farm dwelling severances. I do note that I am satisfied that farm consolidation has been achieved in that the subject property forms part of a farming operation consisting of at least 3 farm holdings and approximately 111 hectares in total, with 1 additional farm dwelling forming part of that farming operation. The surplus dwelling located on the proposed lands to be severed were built before January 1st of 1999. The applicant has stated that the dwelling does require some work to bring it up to building code standards. For instance, there's some cosmetics work to be done on the interior of the structure, as well as a new roof. So planning staff and the chief building official recommend that this requirement be included as a condition of approval. And that is something that we typically recommend on most surplus farm dwelling severances, that the habitability of the dwelling be determined, and if not up to building code standards, then brought to building code standards. The staff have evaluated the accessory buildings on the proposed severed lot, determined that the detached garage maintains the requirements of the surplus dwelling zone as it pertains to accessory buildings and structures on residential lots. The chief building official has confirmed that the structure can be retained by the lands to be severed. However, the grain bins that are located on the lot are recommended to be removed as they don't serve the residential function of the land. The chief building official also recommends that the agricultural buildings on the severed lot be demolished and all debris removed from the site, except for the quantity that is to remain for storage on the remnant farm parcel. The applicant has been made aware of this in previous discussions. Proposed severance was evaluated in accordance to minimum distance separation. We note that there is no livestock facility or anaerobic digester on the property, so MDS does not apply in this situation. To facilitate proposed severance, a zoning amendment will be required to amend those severed lots from general agriculture to surplus dwelling to recognize the residential use and limit the range of permitted use. The remnant farm parcel will also require rezoning from the general agricultural zone to agriculture only to prohibit new residential dwellings on this land. Information of setbacks between the existing single detached dwelling, septic system, accessory buildings, and newly proposed lot lines will need to be further examined for conformity through the submission of a draft reference plan. Should there be any additional deficiencies identified, a site-specific zone would be recommended at time of rezoning. So based on this analysis, I am satisfied that the criteria for the severance of a surplus farm dwelling has or can be appropriately addressed by conditions of consent. Recommendation this evening is for approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, certificate of consent be granted within 2 years of the notice of decision. Number 2, that the applicant solicitor submits an undertaking to register an electronic transfer of title. Number 3, that all outstanding property taxes for the severed and retained lots be paid in full. Number 4, that a zoning bylaw amendment that recognizes the residential use of the severed lot and prohibiting new dwellings on the retained lot be in full force and effect. Number 5, that the habitability of the single detached dwelling be confirmed to the satisfaction of the township. Number 6, that all buildings on the retained lot, with the exception of the existing quad hut, be removed and the site cleared of all materials and construction debris, including remnant concrete from all of these buildings, to the satisfaction of the township. Number 7, that the grain bins on the severed lot be removed. Number 8, that unless replaced, the existing septic system be inspected by a qualified septic installer and the inspection report be provided to the township for determination as to if any replacement or remedial works may be required. The qualified installer shall also confirm the location of the existing septic system to ensure that it is wholly contained on the severed land and confirm that clearance distance from the septic system to the well is adequate. Number 9, that an adequate and potable supply be demonstrated to exist. Number 10, that the owner enter into a severance agreement with the township, advising future owners of normal farm practices in the area. And number 11, that the preliminary survey showing the land to be severed, any required land dedication, the location of all buildings and structures, including their setbacks from the property lines and location of private well and septic, be submitted to the township to be being deposited at the land registry office. And number 12, that 2 paper copies and 1 digital copy of the reference plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the township.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Al, do you have any questions or comments at all?
No, sorry, excuse me, Aaron, I do want to apologize. Ron just got back to me. The previous owner is in Florida, and he just got back to me today as far as where the existing septic portion is. So I will be in touch with you and figure that out exactly.
All right. I guess if there's no other questions or comments, I'll go to the Committee of Adjustment. Is there any questions or comments from members? Councillor McKinnon.
Okay. Yes, I received a call over the weekend, excuse me, and I believe that the repair had spoken about concerns about the septic system and the field tile from the septic system out to the farmland. And I believe that all of the conditions have covered his concerns. So I'm in support of the application.
Okay, Councillor Clark.
I too received a phone call and they were hung up on the habitability of the structure, saying that no one had lived in this for 25 years and they thought that the condition of Severance was that it had to be habitable. So I think Aaron has spoken to that tonight to say that they have 2 years from the time of, if we approve it tonight, they've got 2 years to meet the condition to make it habitable. I drove by, and I actually drove around the property today. The Quonset hut is in great shape. There's a lot of buildings that are going to have to come down there. And I've renovated houses that look worse than that. So I'm in support of it. You got your hands full there, a little bit of work ahead of you. The complaint that I had, or the concern, they were also speaking about the septic, saying that, no one's lived in that house for 25 years. So they're thinking that it's not up to snuff. But, I think Aaron has spoken to that as well, that once it's inspected by someone that's an expert in that area, then that would be a condition that has to be met, as well as the well. So, and I would think, just as in the past, we've asked for well certificates or a letter of opinion, or have the well pumped to find out what capacity is, quality and quantity. So that would be included in the potability piece. So I'm in support of the application.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. So we have the recommendation in front of us, and that's for approval with the 12 conditions, if we have a mover and seconder for that. Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you, Al.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so the next application in front of us is consent B03 2022. And we don't have a 911 address for this one yet, so I'm not going to read it out. So we have a number of folks on the screen that's joining us. I'm going to hand it over to our clerk to say who they are and who they're with.
You didn't want to pronounce Harry's name, I presume, through you, the worship. Representing the application, we do have Harry Frusis from Zelenka Priamo, and Joe Hans is the legal representation. Jennifer Huff again did register, but is not here yet. So.
All right, and both Harry and Joe, you're able to hear us okay?
Yes, we're here just fine, Your Worship.
All right,
yes,
perfect.
I can hear you just fine. Thank you.
All right, I'll hand it over to Aaron to go through the report.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So I've remembered to bring up the location map for this one. I apologize for the last application. Not used to having to do this, so bear with me. So the last application before council this evening is application B03 2022. So the owner of the property is 2789234 Ontario Inc. And we have Zelenka Priamo as the agent representing them. So the purpose of this application is to seek permission to sever one parcel of land to facilitate the creation of 3 lots for future commercial development. The applicants have requested to sever Lot B here, which would actually create A, B, and C just through the removal of this section of land. So council may recall the lands were subject to a previous consent to sever the lot at the corner of Mullaferry and Road last year, whereas this was the remaining lot which we're looking to sever with this application. So the subject lands are vacant of buildings and structures, are comprised of cultivated fields, and do not appear to have an existing access from County Road 1. Surrounding land uses are primarily agricultural to the northwest and south of the subject lands, and across Center Road are a mix of light industrial and corridor commercial uses. Highway 402 is located approximately 1,520 meters north of the subject lands. So Center, of course, is classified as an arterial road under the jurisdiction of the County of Middlesex. Municipal water and sanitary services along Center are provided by the municipality of Stratford-Caradoc. So the application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. The Adelaide Metcalfe Public Works Manager advised that the provision of water and wastewater servicing is subject to a servicing agreement with the municipality of Stratford-Caradoc. The service agreement is currently under negotiation between Adelaide Metcalfe and Stratford-Caradoc. Until such time as the servicing agreement is agreed upon, the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe cannot confirm access to water or wastewater services at this time. The Township Chief Building Official advised of no objection or concern to the application. The Drainage Superintendent noted that the owner will be required to submit a request under Section 78 of the Drainage Act to reconstruct the Cuddy Drain through the property at the time of site plan control. So during this process, other properties upstream would have an opportunity to sign on to the reconstruction of the drain if they choose. The superintendent is making note for the owner's knowledge that this will be required in the future at site plan. However, there is no conditions that are currently proposed from this comment. The County of Middlesex engineer is advising that the owner will be required to dedicate land measured up to 18 meters from the center line of construction of County Road 81 across both the severed and retained if the road is not already to that width. And as discussed with the applicant's agent, access to these properties should be managed through one and at most 2 access points to be formalized through a series of 0.3 meter reserves and access easements that are registered on title. Entrances should be required to line up with other access points from properties across the road wherever possible. The municipality of Stratford-Caradoc advised that the provision of water and sanitary services along Center Road has been provided through an agreement between the municipalities of Stratford-Caradoc and the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe. This agreement expired 2 years ago and has not been renewed. Accordingly, until such time as the new agreement is established regulating the connections to these services, Adelaide Metcalfe has no ability that they are aware of to service the corridor, including the subject lands. Until such time as Adelaide Metcalfe can provide service to a renewed agreement or otherwise, the subject lands are unserviced. In regards to fire service, the applicant should be made aware there is no paid service agreement obliging the Stratford-Caradoc Fire Department to respond to structure fires in Adelaide Metcalfe. Specifically, Stratford-Caradoc does not respond to non-structure fires and only responds if they are not otherwise engaged in the municipality. Enbridge Gas advised that they have service lines running through the area, which may or may not be affected by the proposed severance. Should the proposed severance impact these services, it may be necessary to terminate the gas service and relocate the line according to the new property boundaries. Any service relocation would be at the cost of the property owner. And at the time of writing the subject report, no comments from the public have been received. Pardon me. So the provincial policy statement, county official plan, and local official plan directs that settlement areas shall be the focus of growth and development. So staff are of the opinion that the creation of 2 additional commercial lots would provide for future development and employment opportunities within the township, which is generally consistent with these policy documents. The proposed parcels are large enough to provide flexibility for future commercial uses and would meet the provisions of the commercial corridor zone, in terms of lot area and frontage. Setbacks and lot coverage would be further examined at the time of development proposals and site plan approval. Staff note that the Adelaide Metcalfe official plan sets out the permitted uses contemplated within this area, such as automotive uses, farm and construction equipment uses, building supply, home improvement, hardware outlets, and other large format freestanding retail uses. Development of the proposed lots will be subject to our site plan process and address items such as parking, stormwater management, landscape buffering, etc. I will also note that the property falls outside of the Ministry of Transportation permit control area as indicated on the ministry's website in relation to Highway 402. Section 3343B of the Township's official plan states that development approval in the corridor is subject to confirmation of adequate municipal services in consultation with Adelaide Metcalfe and Strathroy Caradoc. During the agency consultation period, the township and the municipality indicated that servicing of the proposed lots cannot be confirmed until a renewed service agreement is in place. So planning staff this evening are of the opinion that without confirmation of full municipal servicing, deferral of the application is warranted. So my recommendation this evening for the application B03-2022 is deferral until municipal servicing of the proposed lots is confirmed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Is there any additional questions or comments from either Harry or Joe?
Yes, Mr. Worship, actually, both of us would like to speak to the application this evening, and I'll go first. For the record, my name is Harry Prusios. I'm with the Zelenka Preamble Limited. We're the authorized agents and the land use planners for the current landowner. Just wanted to thank Ms. Besh for her efforts in processing and presenting the application before you this evening. We acknowledge that the proposed severances are consistent with the current land use policies and objectives of the provincial policy statement, the official plan, as well as the intended uses permitted by the zoning bylaw. These lands are within a very important and prominent corridor within Adelaide Metcalfe that is intended to be developed for commercial and employment uses to serve the surrounding area as well as the traveling public. The proposed severance will facilitate the development of 3 new commercial uses along this corridor and, in our opinion, warrants your consideration for approval this evening. However, we are not in support of the staff recommendation to defer the application on the basis of addressing servicing requirements. As you can appreciate, delays to this process will have a detrimental impact on my client's ability to meet its contractual obligations with the future purchasers of the lands. And as you heard, a severance relating to these lands was approved in May 2021, and which was filed BO2-2021. The municipality confirmed on September the 9th, 2021 that municipal servicing is available to these lands, and the consent was finalized. As this application deals with the retained lands from that early application, it is expected that services will also be available to these lands. And Mr. Hens will speak to the matter of servicing in more detail. So just in closing for my presentation, again, we do not support the request for deferral, and we urge the council to proceed with a decision on the application this evening. Ideally, a decision for approval would not contain any condition relating to servicing availability. Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll pass it on to Mr. Hens.
Thank you, Harry, Mayor and members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. We reviewed this matter on a previous application on the servicing issue, and in speaking with the municipality's legal counsel earlier last week, I understand that council is working on the servicing issues, and I appreciate your attention to that matter. What our application is seeking to do today is sever the lot. Our client is not a developer and has no intention of developing or building on that lot, but what they have done is entered into agreements with developers who intend to invest in the community and bring services to there. And in order for them to start that process, they need to obtain ownership of those lands. What we're looking to do is to have the severance approved on its merits so that that process can continue and our client can meet its contractual obligations. It is our position that the services are available to the property. They've been paid for by a debenture, and that capacity has been allocated. So we do maintain our position that those services remain available to the property and that the owners of the property are entitled to hook up to those services under the Municipal Act. I appreciate your time, Mayor and members of council and staff. We are available for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you so much, Harry and Joe. I think Morgan, you had a comment you'd like to make.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. Thank you, Joe, Harry, and Aaron for your presentations this evening. I did just want to remind council that Aaron does make decisions based on information that she has access to. She does not have access to the information that we've had or discussed in our closed sessions. So if council does wish to approve this application at this time, I know our clerk has a set of conditions that are prepared, and he can quickly read them out for you. But to, I think it was Joe's point, we will include the condition to confirm adequate municipal surfacing with the township.
Thanks, Morgan. Through the mayor to members of council, the proposed conditions, if approved, are that the certificate of consent under section 5342 of the Planning Act shall be given within 2 years of the date of the notice of the decision. The request for the certificate of consent shall be accompanied by a written submission that details how each condition's consent have been fulfilled. Number 2, that the applicant's solicitor submits an undertaking in form satisfactory to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment to register electronic transfers of title exactly consistent with the acknowledgement and direction executed by the applicant and the decision of the Committee of Adjustment. Number 3, that any outstanding property taxes for the lands subject to the consent B03-2022 be paid in full. Number 4, that the confirmation that adequate municipal servicing is available to the satisfaction of the township in consultation with the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc. Number 5, that the owner dedicates lands up to 18 meters from the center line construction of County Road 81, Center Road across the Severn and retain parcels to the County of Middlesex for the purposes of road widening if the right of way is not already to that width. Number 6, that shared access locations for the Severn and retained lots be established, including the establishment of access easements and lands reserves if necessary to the satisfaction of the County of Middlesex. Number 7, that a preliminary survey showing the lands being severed and retained be submitted to the satisfaction of the township prior to being deposited at the land registry office. And number 8, that 2 paper copies and 1 digital copy of the reference plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the township.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Is there any questions or comments from the Committee of Adjustment? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So we have the recommendation in front of us, and that is to defer, and that's from our planner. And then as you just heard from our clerk, we have proposed conditions, which there's 8 of them that Mike just read aloud. So what is council's wish or the committee's wish? Okay, so your
Conditional. I'll make the motion conditional upon the conditions as stated by the clerk.
okay, so that's moved by Councilor McKinnon. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hendricks. Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. All right, okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
Mayor, members of the committee.
Okay, so that is the last application for the Committee of Adjustment. So we need to have a motion to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment at 7:49. Okay, Councillor Clark and Councillor McKinnon. And all those in favor, and that's carried. And next is the public meeting, and this is for the zoning bylaw amendment Z02-2022, and that's at 7:50. Okay, Councillor Clark, Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor. Okay, so we're in the public meeting, and this is for application for a zoning bylaw amendment Z02-2022 for the 3279 Napperton Drive. And Aaron, I'll throw it over to you. I'm not sure if you're going to do the long version or the short version on this one, since we already kind of went through it. It's up to you.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. Super short version. What we are requesting through this bylaw or the zoning bylaw amendment, again, we are looking to rezone from institutional with site-specific urban residential zone. What that zone will identify is a deficient lot frontage and lot size. I have put together a bylaw for close consideration this evening, which you should have before you. And my recommendation on the application is approval.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. And I assume we don't have anybody registered for the public meeting?
No, we don't. Thank you.
All right. Do you have any questions or comments from council? Okay, mover and seconder for approval, Councillor Clark, Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. All right. Thank you, Aaron, for the super short version, because we're going to adjourn that public meeting at 7:51. Councillor McKinnon, Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, thank you so much, Aaron. Okay, so correspondence. So our upcoming conferences, seminars, and meetings. So on Monday, April 4th, from 5 till 7, there's a Ministry of Municipal Affairs 2022 Municipal Election Candidates Information Session, and that's on Zoom. And then following that on the same day, we have our regular council meeting at 7 o'clock. And then our meeting after that is on April 19th, which is a Tuesday. Thank you. Recommended readings. Number 1 is from the Sauble Bayfield Conservation Authority. It's their board of directors meeting and their minutes from February 17th, 2022. Item number 2, again, from the Sauble, and it's their agenda for from March 17th. Item number 3 is from Ministry of Infrastructure, Getting Ontario Connected Act 2022. Our action required, we have a resolution from Municipality of Mississippi Mills, the joint and several liability reform.
I was in support of the resolution.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor McKinnon and seconded by Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I was going to second it.
Sue is on the buttons quicker, I guess.
It's hard to get that light to come back that fast.
All right, so it sounds like that's going to be all in favor, but we'll show hands. There we go. Then that's carried. The next one there is from the Municipality of South Huron Firefighters Certification. Yep, Councillor Clark.
I don't know if Dan wants to speak to that a little bit, not to put you on the spot, but okay. Yeah, well, because we wanted more information the last time, right? So.
You can start talking.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of moving pieces in that firefighter certification process. In our meeting today, actually with the county chiefs, we touched on it briefly. There's a package coming out in July that's going to further the process going ahead here. A lot of the departments have gone to the NFPA certification the last 5 years, at least, if not before. But I would definitely, smaller rural departments are definitely going to be affected by this. But so I would support that resolution myself going ahead, but that answers your questions.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Okay. Okay, so that's moved by Deputy Mayor Hendricks, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. Okay, all those in favor, and that's carried. And then the last one there, it's a resolution from the Township of Woolwich, and it's mental health supports.
I was for support.
Okay. There we go. So moved by Councilman McKinnon, second by Deputy Mayor Hendricks. All those in favor, and that's carried. All right, so now we just need a motion to file items 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Councillor Clark and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. Staff reports. We have our first one there from our treasurer, Johnny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing prepares for each municipality its annual repayment limit in regarding to long-term debt. The annual repayment limit is calculated based on the data contained in the 2020 financial information return. It represents the maximum amount the township had available as of December 31st of 2020 to commit to payments relating to debt and financial obligations. The limit is calculated at 25% of our own source revenues. So based on the calculated amount, the township has the capacity to borrow an amount that would result in payments equal to or less than $1,395,791 effective of January 1, 2022. Based on that information, the township does have sufficient amount of borrowing capacity. The recommendation is to receive the report as information, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, is there any questions at all? Okay, Councillor Clark.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I appreciate you bringing that information forward because we haven't borrowed in the past. I'm not saying we're going to be in the future, but it's nice to know what our capacity limit is just from an educational standpoint. So thank you very much.
Okay, is there any other questions at all? Okay, mover and seconder for the report. Okay, Deputy Hendricks, seconded by Councillor Clark. All those in favor? And that's carried. And then the next report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the council. The Municipal Act permits the treasurer to register a tax arrears certificate on any lands having 2 years of tax arrears. At the time, a tax certificate will be registered and the owner has 1 year to pay all amounts owing in full and no partial payments are accepted. At the request of the property owner, spouse of the owner, mortgagee, or tenant in occupation of the property, which has been registered for tax arrears, they may request the township to consider an extension agreement at any time within 1 year of being registered. The extension agreement allows a payment plan to be set up where monthly payments will be remitted to the township to recover those tax arrears. Administratively, there may not be sufficient time to obtain the necessary council approval of bylaws on individual property basis prior to some of these deadlines. By delegating authority to the treasurer, the tax extension agreements can be carried out in a timely manner. This also kind of aligns to some of our priorities identified in the 2022 budget, which is increasing the collection of our tax arrears as well. At this time, I would kindly ask council to approve the recommendation as presented, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, is there any questions at all? Councillor Clark.
You're mentioning that we could possibly enter into, as a municipality, a payment plan after the 1 year time period.
Yeah, so those properties that are in 2 years of arrears, we will be registering those properties. So putting really a lien on that property. At that point in time, no partial payments can be accepted at that point. So we have to receive payment in full. But by having this extension agreement, it allows that property owner to set up a payment plan with us. And at that point in time, if any payment plan is missed, it's really one strikeout policy where they'll go right back into the same position. And that.
Okay, and recognizing that that takes additional staff hours, is there a fee for that or interest charged in addition to?
At the current time, there is not, but that's something to consider as far as the fee bylaw review.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? Deputy Hendricks.
Just a comment. I definitely prefer that approach to putting people out on the street at a time like this. It's not like housing options are really available for people. So I'd applaud that.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Okay, so moved by Deputy Hendricks, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? And that's carried. All right. Thank you, Johnny, for your 2 reports. So that brings us to our closed session. And we need a motion from council that council adjourn to a closed session at 8 o'clock pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discussing the following matters. That's under F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose. And that purpose is in regards to the servicing agreement between Strathroy Caradoc and Adelaide Metcalfe for the water and wastewater services. Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Clark and seconded by Almost promoted you. Counselor McKinnon. All those in favor, and that's carried.